How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to a new video. Today, we're going to be seeing what it'd be like to play Terraria with the stamina bar. So yeah, we have this totally new resource that we have to manage. So just about everything that you would imagine would use stamina does. So yeah, obviously running, flying, jumping, that sort of thing. But something interesting to note is grappling uses stamina. Using weapons do. That one's more obvious, I guess. Placing blocks as well. And even using buffs or potions. Trying to drink a potion will use stamina. And most importantly, dashing. Dashing is the biggest one. Yeah, it uses so much stamina, and dashing is really good in general. Yeah, I think dashing is one of the best abilities to have in your kit. Now, what happens when you run out of stamina? Well, you get what's called the exhaustion debuff. So right now we are out. We have the exhaustion debuff, and it's gonna take a while for it to come back up. As you can see, it was very quick. We're already out of the debuff. It only lasts for 2 seconds. So you're probably thinking, okay, well, it can't be that bad. It's only a 2-second debuff. Well, there's a reason why it lasts for a very short amount of time. And that is because the debuff's pretty brutal. So not only does it lower your defense and slow you down, but it prevents the player from doing anything that requires stamina. So the whole list I just mentioned before, running, flying, grappling, jumping, using weapons, placing blocks, using buffs even, and dashing. All of that is off the table. You cannot do any of that while you have the exhaustion debuff, which is very brutal. You can imagine that for any point in the game where there's a situation where there's this powerful enemy that you're trying to get away from, and all of a sudden you run out of stamina and you're screwed. You know, you're trying to dodge your Moon Lord. You got the big laser, like, okay, see that? It's very telegraphed. Let's just avoid that because you don't want to get hit by that. And then, oh, stamina's gone. And you die. So yeah, very tricky to do. Duke Fishron's huge here because again, dashing can't dash. Dashing is really good in the Duke Fishron fight. So you got to rethink kind of how you're gonna do that. You're only gonna have so many dashes before you're out of stamina, and then you can't use your weapon against it. You can't do nothing. So it's really insane how this mechanic works. And even though it only lasts for a couple seconds, that can really, you'll take some damage for sure. If you don't die outright, you're going to take some damage and you're going to be put out of the rhythm and it's going to suck. So how do we play around this? Well, you probably have noticed that we are starting at a weird stamina number here. Like 106 doesn't make a lot of sense. We actually have increased our stamina to 106. So it's going to sound complicated, but it's actually very simple. The idea is if you exercise, your stamina is going to increase. Now, how do you exercise? Well, the idea is when you get exhausted, you're going to gain something called fatigue. Now, fatigue isn't all good. I mean, obviously, fatigue's not fun, but the idea is fatigue is going to temporarily lower your max stamina. Now, this is annoying. The fatigue is that little gray portion of the bar here. Now, notice how there's a line there? Well, what you want to do is you want to get exhausted a bunch, because in doing so, you're going to increase your fatigue. And as soon as your fatigue goes past that bar, it's going to turn green. And then all you have to do is wait till your fatigue wears off. It takes a little while, but it's not too bad. And as soon as it does, you're going to gain +3 stamina. So yeah, it probably sounds complicated, but it's really not. It's very easy. Just get exhausted a lot until you see it go green, and then you just let your stamina go up and you'll have extra stamina. Now, there are ways to help do this. There's actually an accessory called the exercise supplements, and well, I mean, as the name suggests, it's going to help you with your exercise, and it's going to make the gains that you get much more, well, not much more lucrative, but almost double. You get +5 instead of +3. So if you notice here, it's gonna say +3. It is +5. It says +3 though, unfortunately. Hopefully that fixes soon, but it goes from 109 to 114. So yeah, very cool accessory there. Now there's 3 more accessories that I want to go over here, and they have to do with maintaining your stamina. We have the joint bracer, the champion belt, and the leg springs. So all of these are hard mode accessories. And same with the exercise supplements. These are all obtainable in hard mode. I'll talk about what you guys can do to sort of get by pre-hard mode when you don't have access to most of these things in a little bit. But we're going to take a look at the champion belt. This accessory reduces stamina drain from item use. So this is obviously going to be really good. Items including weapons and everything. So on the left, you can see that we don't have it on. We're losing stamina by using our weapon. And on the right, we are not losing anything. You won't actually be gaining any stamina, but it gets to the point where you aren't losing anything. So So next up we have the joint bracer, which reduces stamina drain from non-jump movement, and it also happens to give knockback resistance, which is pretty cool. So for this guy here, I tested running, which, yeah, again, your same idea as before. You're not losing anything with the accessory equipped. And then I also tested grappling. So the grapple is interesting because on the left, we aren't gaining any stamina while we're grappled, whereas on the right, we actually are gaining stamina, which is interesting because for all the other things that we were doing, you aren't gaining anything, you're just not losing it. But with the grapple, it works great. Now, for some reason, I tested wings here, but if I would have just looked at the next accessory, I would have seen that, yeah, the leg springs reduce stamina drain from jumping, which would quite obviously apply to flying. And these also give fall resistance, so it's like the horseshoe effect. So I tested both with jumping and falling off. You might be wondering why I'm using my weapon when I'm testing the jumps here. And that's because if I were to not use my weapon, the stamina drains back really quick, so you can't really notice the difference if I don't do that. So you'll see that, yeah, they very helpful accessories there. Now, all the three of these accessories that I just mentioned can be combined into the powered exoskeleton frame, which is going to be the goal. So once you beat Golem, one of the thing that's kind of you're waiting on are the 2 lizard power cells. So once you get 2 of those and 15 conveyor belts, you can combine the 3 accessories I just mentioned into 1, which is going to be really good. So since you don't have to worry about accessory slots as much, you can keep that guy on and you should be good. Now, again, some of these effects aren't the most useful thing because you're probably gonna have Ink Shield, so knockback doesn't really matter too much, and you're probably gonna have wings at this point, so fall resistance also doesn't really matter. But it's kind of nice if you want to do a little bit of a different build that doesn't center around these different mechanics that you usually would go for. So now we've got one more accessory here, which is one of my favorites actually. I think it's really cool. It's called the Rage Headband, and this one's actually available pre-hard mode. Instead of getting the exhaustion debuff, we are actually going to lose health. So yeah, we just dashed. We took 237. So the amount of damage you take depends on how much stamina you went over the limit. So if you go from like, if we're really close to 0 here, I'm gonna go as close to 0 as possible, basically, without actually getting there. I'm gonna dash. And again, dashes use a ton. So I'll dash right about now. And that just did 300. So yeah, it does a lot of damage. You can trade some health for a few extra dashes, which I think in some key fights that would be important. I think a really good example of this is Duke Fishron, because imagine the expert mode final phase, where you have to dash consecutively like 3 times. Well, you don't really have to dash, there's other ways to do it, but it's like an easy way to get around its attacks. Well, if you don't have enough stamina, you could dip into a little bit of your health to get that 3rd dash in. And theoretically, you would take less damage. But yeah, again, it depends. You gotta weigh the pros and cons to that, because it depends how much defense you have and all of that. But I think it's a cool accessory and a neat idea. So right here, you see we have Fallen Stars, we have the Energy Potion, the Athlete Potion, and some bottled water. So I'll start with the consumables here. They're very simple how they work. Basically, use them, you're gonna get back some stamina. So very simple there. Now, bottled water isn't the greatest because that's actually going to use up some potion sickness. Then you won't be able to heal normally without that. So that's a little annoying. But what is really good are the Fallen Stars because they don't have any sort of cooldown. They're probably the best thing to use in terms of stamina, getting that back. And then we have the potions, which are really good. Now, the length is not great. We've got 30-second duration on the energy potion and the 2-minute duration on the athlete potion. So the athlete potion adds 100 to your max stamina, and the energy potion increases your stamina regen. So yeah, we're gonna do the same thing we were doing just before. We have both of these on. We are barely losing stamina here. This is without any accessories on, with just the buffs, and we're doing really good. Now, obviously, again, if you're dashing, things are going to get bad real quick. But again, every little bit helps. So if you have the max 400 that you get through exercising, and then you use one of these athlete potions, you get up to 500. And then with the energy potion and the accessory, you will get a lot for, you'll be able to survive a lot longer throughout everything. So it's really, really, really good. Now, these, I believe, are both pre-hard mode accessible. Yeah, this one is pretty much straight out of the gate, almost. And the athlete potion is, I think, after Skeletron. Yeah, you need some bones for that one. You can get both relatively early though. Both are available in pre-order mode, so that's really cool to see. So how does this affect the game is what you guys will be wondering. Well, I already showed some clips of some boss fights and how that could very negatively impact your playthrough, but in a fun way though. In a fun way, it makes things more challenging. You know, that's what we're going after here on this channel. So it's really cool to see. So obviously mounts are going to be huge. Any mount, like, well, not any mount, maybe not the turtle, but like anything but the turtle is going to be really good here because you get all of that movement for free. You don't have to dip into any stamina. You can leave that all for your weapons or whatever you're doing at the time. So as you can see, we're actually gaining stamina. We just gained stamina while we're shooting because we have that energy potion on. So again, that is really good, and that's without, you know, accessories. So mounts are huge. The movement you get with mounts, not preferable over to like dashing and that sort of stuff, but you can get away with using mounts for a lot of boss fights and you'll probably do just fine. And the other thing is melee builds. Melee builds are going to get a big boost to their loadouts. So I did mention before that you do actually lose defense. Now it's not a lot. As you can see, we're at 66 defense. I'm going to get the exhaustion debuff and we're down to 61. You only lose 5 defense, which on paper isn't bad at all. That's like just barely over a warding accessory. The further you get into the game, the less that's going to impact you. So especially if you got a bunch of damage reduction, you're going to tanky build. Tanky builds are just going to be buffed in this mod for sure. So whenever you run out of stamina because you mismanaged it or you ran out of fallen stars or whatever, you're going to have a better time as melee because you won't take as much damage from everything. Because at that point, that's all you can do. You just have to sit there and take whatever damage is coming your way. So melee and or any sort of tank build is going to be really good. Now, in addition to melee getting a buff, summons are going to get a huge buff. Because summons, you only have to cast once. And yeah, after seeing the summon class in this mod, you probably already guessed what mage is going to be like. So yes, mage weapons, as far as I tested quite a few. And none of them use stamina. I mean, that makes sense because they have their own mana. So I guess it'd be more accurate to say that all the classes stay the same, but Ranger sort of gets nerfed. Melee doesn't necessarily stay the same. So Melee is technically a little worse, but it's better than Ranger because, or I guess better than it usually is in comparison to Ranger because, again, you have that tank, whereas Ranger's pretty fragile, has to usually run away a lot because of that, and our weapons are going to use a bunch of stamina. So it's going to be tough for Ranger, but I mean, I'm okay with that because Ranger's pretty busted. I'm of the opinion that Ranger's the best class in the game, so I mean, yeah, again, you guys can fight me on that. Some people will say Mage, or at least in 1.3, 1.4 might be a little bit of a different story, but yeah, that's what I think. Anyways, that's not what we're talking about here today. So yeah. So those are the class changes. So any strategy where you're just running away and shooting those early game bosses, that's not going to be all that sustainable. You're going to have to get a lot of fallen stars if you are to do that. Or you're going to have to think of some creative ways to get around that and maybe not rely upon dashing and that sort of thing. And something I just thought of testing out now is grab potions, because theoretically these shouldn't really use any stamina, just the one to use the potion. But if we were to use this and use this for movement, yeah, we aren't using any stamina here. So gravitation potions are going to be also very good for boss fights as well. Although I think, again, lots of these things that I'm listing, I think I'd stay away from because I like the idea of managing this new resource in boss fights. And maybe I'd only turn to these like different options if I was really struggling with the fight. Because some fights could be extremely difficult, to be honest, without that. Like, you could only use a dash of, what, 5-6 times without running out of stamina. I guess it depends on how much you have and, you know, how you space it out. But yeah, it gets pretty bad. So yeah, all in all, like, the mod doesn't add a ton, but what it does add with this new mechanic will really change the way you play the game. But yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. It's been a while since I last posted. I apologize. I do have some new cool stuff coming your way though, so get ready for that. If you guys enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe. I've also checked out a few other cool mods that you should definitely go check out those videos. But yeah, with that being said, thank you guys all so much for watching. I'll see you all in the next one.